So if you didn't catch yesterday's video, this video is part 2 of basically me revisiting some of the very, very early videos that I did on my channel. The ones that didn't actually have a proper narrative, where I had basically done it with writing on the screens before I felt confident enough to actually speak on my channel. So I've taken a series of 4 videos which were looking at the narrative, and I've redone them and actually added a proper narrative to those videos. So this is the second part of that. Most of the clips that I've used in this from the original video I think have got audio, like the music removed from the background, but there's a few that still have music in the background, so I apologise if that becomes distracting. Where possible, I've tried to replace those clips, but I've found these videos to be quite time consuming anyway, so I'm doing the best with what I've got. Anyway, so let's have a look at part 2 of revisiting the narrative that was given to us from Sami Smith. Now, just for context, if you didn't watch yesterday's video, I stopped that at the point where we were discussing the Zoomies keychain, the straw keychain that Sami was so intent on asking people to see if they could find. So this continues from that point.
Someone knows what happened later in the party, nothing bad, and just something that happened later in the party that was a small thing, and it started then.
Our request at this point is if you have video of that night, detectives want more of it. There has been a lot of video provided, and some of it had to do with a fight that occurred at the party. Detectives right now are asking for any additional video that you have. So again, we urge you that you would please bring that forward.
I cannot name who did, but it says the Truckee Facebook missing persons groups are on fire with speculation about what happened to Kylie. Thing is that some of it may not be speculation. It may be real clues as to what happened. The party, 200 plus, fact is there was a lot of drinking and drugging. Reported fights, some disturbing behavior between Kylie and a girl named minutes before the party suddenly breaking up. And then cars started flying out of the parking lot. Something bad happened and all the kids' parents told them not to get involved. You may want to keep in mind that there's a possibility of what happened to Kylie could be more sinister, and there was a panic.
So when you start putting things together, there's a few questions that really stand out for me. First of all, why, if Sami went to Kylie's car, why did she go to Kylie's car? Because we know they weren't friends. Did she truly ask Kylie for a ride home? Or is that just there as part of the narrative? Is that part of her excuse for saying, well, I left her and went back to the party without her, because they weren't friends? We've been told that by Jagger and Kate. They weren't friends. Why would you ask? And why is Sami so obsessed with that keychain in the various interviews? I mean, you saw it even on the whiteboard outside of the RV was, help us find this keychain. So why is that important? Okay, so let's say if Sami actually had asked Kylie for a ride, and I speculate that this never happened. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Was it to get Kylie to stay longer because there was going to be a fight club and Kylie was going to be the star attraction? And so the only way of achieving this was by saying, well, can you give me a lift home? You might need to leave a bit later. Is that why she came to the party? Did they somehow manipulate Mags into getting Kylie to come to the party and then get Mags to leave early from the party? Maybe this story of the guys trying to push bong rips on her is legit, and the idea was to isolate her from Mags because Mags was her best friend. So was this all part of the setup? Let's get her to the party, let's isolate her from her friend, and then so we can have this fight club, let's try and find a way of keeping her here longer than her curfew. Perhaps she actually went to her car at 11 p.m. because she needed to leave. Think about it. Her curfew was 11:30, so 11 p.m. would have fit pretty well with her regular curfew time. So maybe she went to her car at 11 o'clock, planning on leaving, and Sami actually followed her there. She didn't go to Kylie's car with her, but she followed her there because she hadn't had a chance for this fight club. Was Sami perhaps jealous of Kylie and she wanted to humiliate her at this party? So she followed her back to her car to prevent her from leaving home. Maybe someone took Kylie's keys, which meant that she had to contact her mum and say, I need to extend my curfew. And maybe in the tussle, when Kylie's keys were taken, the keychain actually came off Kylie's keys. And someone realised that that actually happened. And they realised that perhaps there was something incriminating on or in that Zoomies keychain. Perhaps there was DNA on that keychain. Perhaps there was trace elements of something that shouldn't have been at that party on that keychain, as well as DNA, which would connect it to a certain party goer who suddenly was panicked about finding that keychain. But it seems to me that for that keychain to be so important, that for some reason it must have been separated from Kylie's keys. And Sami clearly knew that it occurred. And it was something that was a concern for her. Not for authorities, we haven't heard them talk about it once. But the keychain was a concern for Sami. And she was so concerned that she was making sure that it was mentioned. And she was asking people to look out for it. So I think that is significant when we look at this whole narrative. Why is it important? So when we look at Sami's narrative, there's a problem. There's a massive hole in her narrative. Supposedly they went to Kylie's car at 11 o'clock and they spoke about charging their phones. They spoke about Kylie texting her mum. So we can guess that she was probably still at the car around 11:30, right? And then she tells us that she went back into the party to get a ride. And then she left at 12:25. So there seems to be an hour there that doesn't quite really have any part of the narrative attached to it. And meanwhile, we also have Kylie's phone becoming problematic because it seems that her phone just vanished. The timeline with Kylie's phone raises questions, especially when we look at it alongside Sami's narrative. So we know that at 3 minutes past 12, Kylie's phone stopped sharing its location. Does this mean that perhaps Sami was at the car until 12 o'clock and then something happened, and then in a panic she decided she needed to turn off Kylie's phone? Now she tells us that she said bye to Kylie and then got a ride home with some mystery person. We don't know who that is. Even Megan Cole is really protective of that person. She comes up with a name at one stage. Later on, she's forgotten who that is. So Sami took a ride home with someone else in the passenger seat. That was something that was really odd, the way she said that. So this, I think, is important also. This is from an interview with Lindsay, and she talks about the curfew. Kylie normally has a curfew to be home by 11:30, but sometimes messages asking to stay out until 12:30 a.m. if she's at a party. We always grant that. She never misses a curfew, and if she's going to be late, she'll call or text to let us know, said Ms. Rodney Neiman. Okay, so if that is the case, Kylie should have been leaving the party at 12:15 to meet her curfew. At the very latest. Possibly even should have been leaving the party at 12, somewhere between 12 and 12:15, given that it was night time, so the roads were dark, etc. And it says right here, Lindsay has said she never misses a curfew. If she's going to be late, she'll call or text to let us know. Yet the last communication Lindsay had from her was at 11:30 saying that she was going to be late and she was extending her curfew to 12:30. There was no more communication from Kylie saying, can I extend my curfew a bit more because something has happened? And yet for some reason, her location sharing gets turned off at 12:03. I think we can be fairly certain that Kylie did not turn her own location sharing off at 12:03. If she was going to be delayed, she would have contacted her mum and said, I'm delayed again for this reason. And from the same article, Ms. Rodney Neiman said that their family members share cell phone location data, and so she checked her daughter's phone. The last location data was at the campground where the party took place at 12:03. In other words, location was turned off at 12:03. She has since learned that Snapchat data shows her cell phone at the same location at around 12:30 a.m. Ms. Rodney Neiman said it would be odd for her daughter to let her phone go dead, adding that she has a charger in her car. So here we have, now we know what that last ping was. It was data from Snapchat. So either someone sent Kylie a Snapchat or Kylie sent someone else a Snapchat. Personally, I believe that someone sent Kylie a Snapchat because if her location data was off at 12:03, I don't believe Kylie was capable at 12:33 of then sending a Snapchat. So I think that something occurred. Her location data was turned off. Her location was turned off at 12:03. And then by 12:33, the phone was either waterlogged, underwater, or completely destroyed. They are the only reasons for a phone to go completely dark like that. And let's not forget down the bottom here, Ms. Rodney Neiman said it would be odd for her daughter to let her phone go dead, adding that she has a charger in her car. Okay, we do have the narrative of them going back to the car to charge the phone, yada yada. But even still, for the phone to be completely dead at 12:33, after location data has been turned off, at a time when theoretically, Kylie should have been on the road driving, meaning that her phone would have been plugged in charging while she was driving, right? That's what we all do. And I'd imagine that would be what Kylie would have done. So, taking a closer look at the timeline for the phone, location data was turned off at 12:03, and it was at the location where the party took place. Now, they haven't said precisely where that was. Anytime Lindsay is interviewed, she always talks about the location of the party. But the thing that we have to remember here is that location data was turned off at 12:03 a.m. That is significant, and we'll talk about that more in just a moment. Now, I know you guys know all this, and I'm just going through stuff that you know, but the 12:33 ping, it says here specifically that the cell phone was at the same location. So that tells us that at the very least, Kylie's phone did not leave the location of the party. And of course, by extension, we know that by that point in time, something had already gone desperately wrong, because Kylie should have left that party long before 12:33, meaning that either Kylie was still with her phone and still at the party, or Kylie had been separated from her phone. And if Kylie had been separated from her phone, how and why did that occur? Supposedly, she had her phone at 11:30, messaging her mum. So, something happened after she messaged her mum, either separating her from her phone, or something occurred which forced someone to turn off location sharing.
It wouldn't have been unusual for me to even get another text from her, another half hour, 40 minutes later, letting me know that she was on her way.
So why did Kylie break from her regular pattern? She didn't send that follow-up text to her mother to say that she was leaving the party. Instead, you have location sharing being turned off at 12:03. That is not in character for Kylie. What actually happened here? Why didn't she send the follow-up message to say, hey, I'm leaving the party now, I'll be home shortly? Why instead was location sharing turned off? Question. It's an important question. And I think it's something that is a dead giveaway. And I think too, it's something that people who continue with the whole she drove herself into the water narrative need to provide a solid explanation for. So, at this point, so far what we have in terms of a timeline is we have apparently, well, we're guessing at 11:30 that Sami and Kylie went in different directions. Sami doesn't say exactly when she went back into the party, but there is a bit of an inference there that Kylie texted her mum and then Sami went back into the party to look for someone else. Now, we have a narrative which I personally disbelieve, but it was mentioned by someone who just conveniently happens to be friends with Sami, that she saw Kylie falling down a hole and that she appeared to be really, really drunk. Of course, like I said, I disbelieve any of these Jane Doe stories that were put out. I believe they were an attempt to steer the narrative. So this is not something that I've focused on much at all in the past, because it is from one person and one person connected to Sami. That is a major red flag and a major concern to me. And of course we also have the account saying that Kylie had communicated to her friends at 12 that she wanted to go home. Now we have this 12:03 where the location data stops. And then less than 15 minutes after that, Kylie should have been on the road. She should have been in her car with her phone plugged into the charger and going by all her regular patterns, going by what Lindsay has said, then she should have been ready to leave the party, and she should have been sending a text to her mother to say, I'm in the car now, I'm leaving the party, I'll be home soon. But that didn't happen. So then 12:25, which I find really interesting because we have this story of a mass exodus at 12:30. So is this Sami's way of saying she left before anything happened? Because she knows that there was a mass exodus at 12:30? Is she inadvertently telling us precisely what time something occurred? Or perhaps what time news of whatever occurred happened? Or is it that she is just trying to make herself appear absent before a sighting of Kylie's car leaving the campground? And I'll get back to that later on.
I found her as I was leaving the party. I was making sure to find her to tell her that I had another ride home and that I loved her and I wanted to say bye and for her to have fun at the party. And then when I left the party, we were pretty much on 89 with my ride, and she called me as I was in the car in the passenger seat, and she was like, "Hey, where are you? Do you still need a ride home?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay. Like I'm in the car right now. I'm like getting driven home now."
And Sam doesn't know all the information. She obviously doesn't. She left.
So not only do we have Sami putting forward this whole story of, I left the party at 12:25, but apparently Megan has to push the whole narrative as well. And she said it so many times. So why was it so important to establish that Sami was not at the party after 12:25? Are there witness statements that are going to say that something occurred after 12:25? Or is there some connection there with this story of the mass exodus from the party at 12:30? There is some reason for Sami to want to separate herself from Kylie at around 12:25. I wasn't there, I know nothing. Last time I saw Kylie, she was going back into the party. I'm totally innocent because I was already gone when something happened. To me, that is what this narrative is pushing. And it seems that for some reason, Megan is on board with this and is quite happy to lie for Sami as well and say the same story. Sami couldn't have done anything because she already left. So here, Megan is even acknowledging that something occurred after 12:25, but that Sami wasn't there. She spoke to Kylie on the phone after she left, apparently, which apparently then creates the impression that Kylie was still alive at 12:36 when Sami spoke to her, even though Kylie's phone had gone dark. Which begs the question, how could Sami speak to her? She claims she spoke to her at 12:36 and she could hear the party still in the background. So not only does that mean that shouldn't Kylie have been seen by other people after Sami left? Why did Sami claim that she was the last person to see her? And then she's talking about talking to Kylie, who was still at the party And suddenly, what do you have here? You have what comes up so often in these kinds of narratives. Suddenly, we're not talking about Sami. We're talking about some other dude. It wasn't Sami because she wasn't there. And we're talking about some other dude in a few different ways. First of all, Sami was in her car with some other dude. So she has this invisible alibi. I was in a car with someone else. They were driving. So it wasn't me, because there is someone out there who could say that they were with me. Funny thing is, we don't know who that is because that name has never been put forward. There was a suggestion of a name, Connor, which I think came from, I don't know where. Megan ran with it for a while. Then she forgot the name later down the track when she was asked again, which to me said that the name was just made up from the beginning. But this raises questions, or at least it does for me. Why is it that you do get this whole narrative here, and when things start to become questionable, suddenly you have some other dude becoming part of the narrative? Suddenly, Sami wasn't there at the party when something must have happened. And she's saying something happened after I left the party. I know Kylie was still at the party. I could hear people in the background. So she's basically shat on her own alibi or her own story of saying she was the last person to see Kylie. Because now she's saying, well, I was the last person to see Kylie. I was the last person to speak to Kylie. I was the last person to know what went on. But hey, she was still at the party when I spoke to her on the phone when I was gone from the party. So she's trying to establish some other dude, but she forgot the first part of her alibi or of her story. And the first part being, well, I know what happened because I was with Kylie the entire time.
I was the last person to see her and talk to her, actually. She called me at 12:36 in the morning asking if I still needed a ride home from the party, even though about 10 minutes before that I had told her, like, I'm leaving, I already have another ride, because I didn't want to drive home with her. I was the last person to contact her after the party.
I think the last location known that we put out, from I think day one is around 12:30. Yeah, the ping for the data points and everything were near the water. It's hard to tell an exact pinpoint or anything like that, but just as much on land as it was on water.
So at about 12:36 a.m. in the morning, I saw a call from her, and she called me. I was on my way home from the party, and she was supposed to give me a ride home, but I had already told her I didn't need a ride home. And I answered it, and she said, hey, where are you? Like, do you still need a ride home? And I was like, no, I already told you this. Like, we're all good. Like, I'm in the car right now. Like, thank you so much. After that, nobody has had any contact or sighting of her. So it's been complete radio silence. Her phone has been off. Her location isn't on, and nobody seems to have reportedly even seen her after 12:30.
The last information we have from cellular data is the 6th at 33 minutes after midnight.
But yet, in multiple articles, it says that Kylie called Sami at 12:36. So, did she call her from a different phone? Or Sami just has the time mixed up? Or it's something completely different altogether? What do you guys think?
Now, police say the last known activity on Kylie's cell phone was at 12:33 a.m.
So why are there gaps in the timeline? Why was it so important for us to find this keychain? Or it was at least important for Sami. And why is it so crucial for us to believe that Sami wasn't at the party after 12:25 a.m.? Particularly given that this is just before the last communication from Kylie's phone with any cell towers. And of course, Sami is insistent here that she was in the car with her ride and she spoke to Kylie on the phone, who was still at the party because she could hear the party in the background. And this is so important that even Megan Cole is pushing this narrative. And there's that big gap in the timeline. Did Sami go back into the party at 11:30? Did she go back into the party sometime between 11:30 and 12:25? At what point in time did she leave Kylie's car to go and find another ride, if she was actually at Kylie's car? And who was she in Kylie's car with? None of those people have come forward and said, yeah, we were the couple of other people that were in the car with Kylie and Sami, and we can back up everything that Sami has said here. We've never heard from anyone who has come forward to back up any of these things that Sami says. We've never heard from the person that drove Sami home. And in fact, when you ask Megan Cole about it, she becomes defensive, she becomes nasty, she becomes verbally aggressive. Maybe it was Daisy Cole, maybe that's why Megan Cole is so affected by it, or maybe it's because Megan Cole knows exactly what happened and she is still protecting Sami. Was she being paid to protect Sami? Was she the cleaner, for want of a, well, it would be the perfect description, really. Because there is something with this whole narrative that just doesn't fit together. And yet, we're supposed to believe, just from looking at this one thing, and that's before you start to factor in all the other things that weren't right in Kylie's case, we're supposed to believe that Kylie just accidentally drove herself into the reservoir. How is that possible? We know that that is not really possible. But we have people really pushing it at us now. It was an accident. Let her rest. Can't you just let her rest? It was an accident. Stop talking about it. Well, explain this whole timeline to me for starters. And that's before we look at all the other things in Kylie's case. But give a solid explanation of this timeline from 11:30 through to 12:30. Explain why Kylie's phone, why the location sharing was turned off at 12:03. Why she never contacted her mother to say that she was on her way home. Why did her phone go completely off, completely dark at 12:33? And why is it so important for us to be aware of the fact that Sami had already left the party before that occurred? And Sami is even claiming that she had a phone call with Kylie at 12:36. Now, later in her interviews, after law enforcement have said, well, Kylie's phone went dark at 12:33, Sami let that bit rest. So I think she realised that she'd screwed up here with her narrative, but it was recorded. What she said was digitally preserved, so she can't exactly back down on it. Why the lies? Why the inconsistencies? Why Are there holes in the narrative? Why are people telling us that Kylie drove herself into that reservoir and it was just an accident, when even just looking at this one thing, this portion of the whole timeline, doesn't make sense? And this is only one element of Kylie's case that does not make sense. Now, this video is actually from part, I think, 3 of the original 4 videos that I put out. And I'm going to do part 4 as a separate video again, because it starts with looking at the actual search, and there's questions there that I have with regards to the search. And that will be tomorrow's video. So if you didn't catch yesterday's video, it's worth going and having a look at, because that starts looking at this whole 11:30 to 12:30 timeline. And also because in tomorrow's video, after I look at the search and the issues I have with regards to the search, I'm going to actually draw all these things together into a bit of a summary and put forward my thoughts on this whole narrative. These stories that we were told from Sami and Megan Cole. The things that just don't add up in Kylie's case. So come back tomorrow for the 3rd video in this series. And if you're new here and you like what you're hearing, please hit the subscribe button. Also, let's keep YouTube happy. Click the like button and please leave a comment below. These are the things that get my video out into the algorithm and get it seen by people. It keeps YouTube happy and it keeps me feeling encouraged and coming back. So I hope that you will join me tomorrow for the 3rd video in this series. And I'll catch you then.